Welcome to the Balanced Virtual Trainer Podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia, and I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. We have a guest that has been doing virtual training, does in-person training, and is here to talk about both of those. We have a friend of mine out here in Arizona, Kristi Taylor. Kristi, thank you for being my guest.
That's my pleasure.
Let's kick things off and kind of set the stage for the episode. We'll say, can you share with the guests what you were doing before doing online workouts and kind of what you do now?
All right. So prior to doing online workouts, I was teaching in-person classes for two major fitness chains here locally in the East Valley.
Okay. And with the online workouts, and something in terms of why I wanted to have you on the podcast was your willingness to learn stuff about online workouts. I know that you do a little bit of editing. You really care about how your workouts look with your branding, all that kind of stuff. Did you have any type of education or familiarity with technology prior?
Zero. I had nothing. Like I barely even knew how to use Instagram, let alone record myself and then edit it and post it online. I think 2020, I just was having almost daily heart attacks trying to figure out how to do this with zero background.
And what's kind of your process now when you are getting ready for a workout, an online workout, and that after? Can you walk us through all the steps that you go through for it?
Okay, so obviously now I'm about a year and 3/4 into this process of either teaching in person virtually or posting on demand workouts. So I have a little bit more experience than when I first started back in April of 2020. But my process now first involves loading my music onto my computer. I use copyrighted music, and there are some legal and other technical aspects that come along with using copyrighted music. But I have to do that first, load my music into my computer. And then it comes down to figuring or getting all the tech set up, making sure that my camera is plugged into my computer, that I've got my microphone set up, I've got the lighting on. I always have my playlist posted on a wall off screen so that I can remember what songs are on my playlist. I've got to make sure, of course, that I've got my equipment out. I have a pretty blank space here, but there is a small corner and a small bench where I put my weight sets. And if we're using a mini band and usually a towel and a water bottle, I keep it very, very simple. And then I always do about a 2-minute recording to just check the sound, make sure that the microphone, my voice can be heard, make sure that the music is coming through at an acceptable level. You don't want it to cover up the instruction, but you also don't want your music to be so soft that it lacks motivation. So I'll do like a 2-minute, maybe my warm up, for example. I'll do my warm up and I'll stop the camera and then look at it. Take a minute to see if everything went well and sounds good. And then I reset, I push play, and I teach as though I was in an in-person setting, as though the camera is a class full of people and they're right in front of me. And I have to give them the same energy, the same motivation, both in my body language and in my tone of voice that I would if I was in person. And I don't stop. I run it from beginning all the way to the end as though I were in an in-person situation. And then once we're finally finished with that cool down, we take that big, deep breath. I remind everyone of my social media feed so that they can be updated when the next on-demand workout will become available. And then I finally get to turn off the camera and take a big sigh of relief that I made it through. And I should say, I always make mistakes. And I always make small mistakes here and there, but in my opinion, the definition of a true performer isn't someone that can perform without making any mistakes. It's someone who can perform so well and has so much experience that no one notices the mistake.
Yeah. And I would say that's part of also the personality of the instructor, that it makes it almost a realness, that brings a realness to the workout, that it almost can make the person on the other end relax a little. They know, oh, wow, like they made a little mistake, but you get a little bit of a hint of what that person's really like. And I
Yeah.
think that is a good sign of a pro, is that their ability to blend it all in, that they can just let it go. It's not going to affect them. What was kind of your mental process with kind of going through that, realizing, okay, I can make a couple mistakes and I'm just going to keep it rolling. I'm going to grow through it. What's kind of been your thought process with that?
Well, what helped the most was when I got some feedback from a very good friend of mine that I've known since high school. She
Mm-hmm.
began taking my virtual live classes over Zoom
Mm-hmm.
shortly after the pandemic happened and everything everywhere closed.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I transitioned over to on-demand workouts, she started taking those as well. And at the very beginning, I asked her, hey, if you see mistakes, will you please let me know, which workout it was? There's a chance I can edit it out. And of course, she was very gracious and said, of course, I'll help you with that. But then she said, you know what, Kristi, even the professionals make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
She had a Beachbody subscription prior to this and had done some other what I would consider more professional or more established workouts from
Mm-hmm.
workout companies. And she said that they make mistakes too.
Yeah.
And when she told me that, it was a huge weight off my shoulders. Like, oh wait, Beachbody professionals still make mistakes on camera, and those aren't always caught and always edited out. Oh, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
And if she didn't mind it, then I'm like, you know what? I don't think any of my other participants are going to mind that occasionally I start on the wrong beat and I have to correct myself, or occasionally I cue the wrong move. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I've kind of gone through a mental realness, kind of just looking inwards and thinking about online workouts and how difficult they can be. They are very tough for a lot of instructors because of the mental aspect of it, the ability to continuously film. I film quite a bit of tutorials, things for instructors. And I say this all the time that I have so many mistakes in those, but I can cover them up. I can edit them out. I can cover them up with B-roll film. And there's often times where I'll have a mistake that I'll have to repeat something 5, 6 times. But the one take that's used, it sounds like I didn't make a mistake, but that's editing. That's the magic of film and knowing how to utilize it that way. And instructors have it hard, in my opinion, with that continuous rolling and trying to not make mistakes, but finding that comfort zone while you have a recording is all part of the process. Let's take a step back now and go to, I'll say, the education of learning technology, learning how to film, learning how to edit. What was your motivation behind it?
So this came about after some early morning meditative time in
Mm-hmm.
January of 2021. So to remind everybody of the conditions at that time, in Arizona, at least, gyms were open and I was teaching in-person classes again, but there were a lot of requirements, a lot of mitigation strategies. Everyone had to wear masks. Numbers were decreased, or rather the number of participants who could attend were kept to a minimum so as to avoid exposure to germs. And it was a tough environment. Not only that, but COVID cases were spiking, like
Mm-hmm.
really, really spiking.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that I needed to have a foot in the online, in the virtual space,
Mm-hmm.
in order to stay viable in the future as a fitness professional. That I needed some experience, because there just was no telling when the pandemic was going to come crashing down on us full force hard again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I decided to really invest some time and a little bit of money, but
Mm-hmm.
mostly time into the virtual space.
Yeah.
And now, of course, looking back, gyms did not close again in our
Mm-hmm.
state, but that's not the case all over the United States, and definitely not the case of what happened in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Um, different states handled it differently. Sometimes gyms were allowed to be open, and in other locations they weren't. Nevertheless, I felt like it's been a really good experience for me to get into the virtual space and to try it out and gain experience there.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great to hear. In my opinion, that's part of making your workouts more professional, how they look. I think that it is the main reason and part of why I wanted to have you on the podcast to share that type of insight to it. I think sometimes scrolling online, I'm not a big Facebook person, but I rarely engage on Facebook posts in certain groups, but I do see people posting about, oh, I don't have time to learn about X, Y, and Z. I just need the quick solution. Or what should I do about this? But I'm not gonna go research this. It's like, well, then why are you posting? Why are you saying you need help when you're not gonna take those steps? And so the fact that you have done these, you've researched them, you're learning them, and these are things way outside of what a typical fitness person is used to and what they do. So I give you major props for that, especially with the editing. That's something that, just even a little bit of work with it makes the difference, in my opinion, with workouts, just how they appear, the trimming, all that kind of stuff. When you edit something, what is the software that you're using?
I use a free software. It's called Shotcut. A friend of mine introduced me to it, and I have learned how to use it mostly by trial and error and watching a lot of YouTube videos. Lots.
What are the main things that you do when you edit?
So first I want to, like you mentioned, trimming. I want to trim off the beginning time where you see me actually walk in front of the camera. And then, of course, at the end, you want your videos to be edited so there isn't any extraneous motion after the workout is over. I also add captions so that participants know what the song is that they're listening to, but also what type of exercising we're doing during that song. Is it a warm up? Is it a lower body toner, or have we moved on to a cardio? I have some side frames. If you ever watch my workouts, you'll see that both sides of the frame is gray. There's a gray space. And that's where I put the captions. That's where I put the name of the song and what type of exercising we're doing during that song.
Okay. And what have been some of your favorite resources on YouTube? Are there certain channels that you go look at?
Well, when I first got started in the online world, I was doing my virtual workouts. They were live. They were in person. I shouldn't say in person, but they were live virtual workouts, and they were on a platform called Twitch. Now it's an odd platform for a fitness professional to use, because if you're familiar at all with Twitch, you'll know it's for video gamers. It is a platform for people to play video games together. But during the shutdowns that were so prevalent in 2020, many fitness professionals turned to Twitch as a way to keep teaching, keep engaging with their audiences. It's a free platform. And interestingly, they also provide a lot of the music licensing that is necessary for using copyrighted music in an online space. Now, I am going to quickly add that music licensing, the laws regarding music licensing have changed significantly in the past 12 months. So what was true in 2020 isn't necessarily true about music licensing today in 2022. So I just wanted to add that really fast as kind of a disclaimer before we go on. But I started off on Twitch, and there are so many YouTube tutorials on how to get set up on Twitch. So I watched a lot of those, and that's where I learned the basic skills of what kind of a camera I would need, what kind of recording software. I do use OBS, and that is the most common software for Twitch, for YouTube, for some other major online platforms. And then from there, it was a process of, okay, now that I've liked this channel, then they would recommend other channels, and I would go watch that one. And then through that process, I would gather more information. And eventually, what really brought everything together was a little bit serendipitous. I had went to Best Buy to go purchase a new laptop computer. The laptop I was using was just too old. I needed a new one for
Mm-hmm.
streaming on Twitch. And I walk in and I go to the very back where they keep the laptop computers. And the sales clerk asks if he can help me. And I say, yes. I say, I need a laptop for streaming on Twitch. I'm going to start a fitness channel.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me and he's like, that is the coolest idea ever. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I have a fan. And then he proceeded to say, I actually have a side business where I help people get set up on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you now? I need your number and I need you
Mm-hmm.
to come to my house and help me get set up on Twitch.
Nice.
So that's how it started. That's having that one individual come and kind of show me the ropes, particularly with my recording system, which again, I use OBS.
Mm-hmm.
That was so incredibly helpful.
Oh, I
Loved the
bet.
YouTube stuff, but having someone in my house looking at my computer, looking at my gear, and actually connecting it all for me
Yeah.
was absolutely invaluable. So if anybody is listening and wondering, where do I find this person? I say, go to Best Buy, because actually there were several people at Best Buy who helped me out in picking different aspects of the tech that I'm using. So in my opinion, they were all experts.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think that's a prime example of going outside of your comfort zone, but even where you would typically think to find help. I will say that I've watched a lot of videos outside of the fitness realm. There's not many within the fitness realm that will go over those items, but you kind of have to be creative. And that's a perfect example of that. You're at Best Buy for one thing and you end up finding another that is very useful. And I think it's a prime example of there's so many tutorials, lots of people willing to help, and you just got to be kind of creative sometimes. That I know that I've watched a lot of videos about streaming, about technology, about cameras, about interfaces, mixers, microphones, and they're all from different industries. None of them are from the fitness realm. So it's just finding those and trying to apply it to what you're trying to do. It's thinking outside the box sometimes, and that's great to hear that somebody at Best Buy helped you with that, took all those steps, which is, just a sign of, I feel like the times that there's people out there willing to help, and it doesn't matter what you're trying to accomplish. They'll help you, they'll walk you through it, and there's a lot of good people out there like that. So very cool story there to share on the podcast with your online workouts and also teaching in person. I think that's something that we've kind of, we talked about at the beginning but have you found that there's been some things with your online that have helped you with teaching in person?
Oh, absolutely. I should say that most of my online business right now is coming from my in-person classes. That's where I'm getting the most traction from.
Mm-hmm.
I will teach an in-person class and someone will come up to me afterwards. They'll tell me that they loved it and they wish I taught more often. And then that's my opportunity to pull out my business card and say, well, guess what I do? You can take my workouts on demand anytime on Recess TV. And here's my card and with the website right on it. And that's where I'm getting, truth be told, most of my online clients are from my in-person teaching.
Wow. Nice. And with your instruction, have you found any improvements in that area too?
I have the ability to emote with my face. That I need to vary my expressions throughout my workouts. I have a tendency to slap a smile on and just keep it on the entire time. And I've noticed when now that I've recording myself and I watch the workouts afterwards, I see, I need to do more with my face. I need to engage more. I need to have a more variety of expressions as I am presenting, whether it's to a camera or to a live audience. My goal is to motivate them. And that includes using every skill possible: body language, facial language, actual language, tone of voice. And watching myself, I've been able to be my best critic and improve in many ways.
I dig that. And I will say that is one of the tendencies that I have found with instructors in terms of improving their classes, growth, that watching themselves and the ability to watch it, but not be super critical of yourself. Watch it to learn. Watch it to be able to find these things and then find the solutions for them. That watching yourself back, you learn so much about it. some of the other things that I've always said to instructors is you're not just watching back for yourself. You're watching back to see, how am I framed? How are my music levels? How is my tone? All these different things that have nothing to do with your appearance, but you learn so much from it. And just sometimes I got to say, hey, you just got to get going. You got to get going. You got to start that process because we're going to learn so much from it. Do you have any other, we'll call piece of advice, but also things that you've learned that like, okay, I feel like this is a strong tendency that instructors should cue into?
So one of the, I guess, pieces of advice I would give to anybody who's starting out is to keep your space where you're going to be recording as clear and as clean as possible. Mm-hmm. Like you, I have also watched a lot of videos that are being produced by fitness professionals now, several of them from the platform that I'm currently using. Mm-hmm. And I get it. We're trying to figure this out as we go. So a lot of people are recording their workouts in their living room. They're recording them in their garage. And I get it, where this is an experimental time, but I would encourage folks to keep that space as absolutely clean and clutter-free as possible. Move everything out that you can possibly move out of the way. And that's going to make for a better presentation, so that you are the focus, and that your participants or your clients can focus on what you are doing and not anything that's in the background so much.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. That it was actually the focal point of a tutorial that I made last week. It was about improving your virtual studio and building that out. And I have actually 2 studios now in my house, but the second one that I built that I recently finished it's just improving your space, improving where you are filming, because it's part of the industry these days, in my opinion. It's part of how do I get to that next level? And one of the things that I share in this tutorial is how filming, recording, what people see is what's in front of them. They don't see what's behind you. You could be in your living room. You could be in your office. You could be in your bedroom. You can be in so many different places, but all people see is what's in front of them in that frame. Yeah. They don't know what's behind the camera, what's going on. It could be a total mess behind the camera, but as long as it looks great in front of you and it's not distracting, that's what really matters. And with your filming space, and this just builds off of what you just said there, when I was learning more about editing, growing in how I was filming, making tutorials, I'd spoken with a professional editor. And this individual I'd known for years, and I just reached out to them. Hey, can you watch this video? Give me some feedback. And they were super critical, but it was great information to learn. And one of the things was your background. Exactly what you said. This person said, those chords in the background, you need to fix that. You need to hide them. You need to do something with them, because anytime somebody watches a video, anything will distract them. So if it's chords, or it's your kids' toys, or it's a pet, anything like that, they're going to see it and they're going to be distracted, and they're not going to be paying attention to you. So it's a great piece of advice. And I know that just from seeing on social media, people are like, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. It's like, come on. If you want to grow in this space, you got to take those steps. So let's talk a little bit more about, we'll say filming, but instructing online, but positive stuff. What have been some of your favorite benefits of instructing online?
Oh, wow. There have been several. First of all, I mentioned one of them already, is that benefits of hosting my classes on demand is I now have an additional extension to my in-person business.
Yes.
The individuals who have come to my classes in person have loved them, but want more. I'm like, great, here you go. Take my class whenever you want at home. And it brings in additional business for me.
Yeah.
The other benefit is being online, I can reach people and teach people who do not live in my state.
Yeah.
I am originally from Utah. That's where the majority of my family and my friends from childhood live. Mm-hmm. When the pandemic first occurred and I switched to an online teaching system, first on Zoom, then later on Twitch, and now on my current platform of Recess TV. Mm-hmm. I had friends from high school join me. And afterwards, we would chat, and it was wonderful to
Mhm.
not only catch up on a personal level, but to know that I was helping to improve their health during such a difficult time. Some of those friends are still taking my workouts online. My mother takes my classes,
Love
which
it.
just gives me so much joy because it's my mother whom I love and
Yep.
adore. But she also suffers from a neurological disability. She cannot be in environments with really loud noises
Hmm.
for very long, or she will experience seizures. So
Mm.
obviously, going to a gym will just never work for her,
Yeah.
whether it's the loud music that they're playing or the clanking of the weights. That a gym environment would send her to the hospital.
Oh,
She is able to take my classes
love it.
online, and that's wonderful for me to know that I can reach populations that previously, either for physical reasons or for emotional self-esteem reasons,
Hmm.
didn't want to go to the gyms. And I mentioned self-esteem because I think women, especially, particularly middle-aged and older women, sometimes have a really hard time walking in gym doors
Yeah.
simply because of the immediate mental comparison that goes
Yeah.
on. You walk through those doors, and even though there are 100 other women that are middle-aged, just doing their best, the one person that you look at is the one teenager in her teeny tiny little outfit with, perfectly sculpted curves. And then it's
Hmm.
like a hit to the self-esteem.
Yeah.
And those women can find their workouts online now without the hit to the self-esteem.
Love it.
So,
Yeah. It's coincidental that you mentioned that because that's actually something that I've been thinking about over the, I think, last 72 hours.
mhm.
And it's something that's been discussed over the last year. I feel like on different podcasts, different guests that I've had was about the popular population, the majority of people in this world and anywhere do not go to the gym. And people often think that they're fighting for a limited amount of people, but the majority do not go to the gym. And
Right.
online is such a benefit in that aspect that if you can eliminate these barriers, there's so many barriers to exercise. But if you can take one that allows them to exercise in a more comfortable space for them, you are doing such a great service for people. You are reaching people that had never thought that they'd be able to do it. And that's such a positive in my book of why we do this profession, why we do what we do. And so thinking in that aspect, and one of the stories that came to my mind why I was thinking about this was I used to train an individual that, and this is crazy to say, or it's not crazy, but it is an interesting thought that I remember a client that I trained, he had never exercised before and he had never even really gone to a gym. And we were doing seated shoulder presses. And maybe after like 3 reps, 4 or 5 reps with 10s, 15s, we had to take a break. We had to take minutes of breaks because never gone through there. There are so many people out there that have not ever lifted any weights. So being able to reach them and being able to work with them and trying to figure out how we can eliminate some of these barriers, that's a place to think about for the future. It's a place to realize that not everybody is super fit and to realize, oh, wow, there is an opportunity out there to make an impact. I feel like that's a question I've been asked in the last week. And it's something that I think about. How can I make an impact on something that a lot of people are doing? And it's right there, helping people that have never been to the gym. So I like that we're talking about this in this episode, and we're getting to the podcast closing tips here, but there's one more question I want to ask before we get to it. And it's one that every time that I've ever gone on any type of fitness show or something that's streamed, everybody always wants to ask me about what technology do I use? What camera do I use? What microphone do I use? So I feel like it's a good one to ask you, Kristi. What are the things that you're using now so that you can share with guests?
All right. So I mentioned before that the recording software I use is OBS,
Mm-hmm.
and the editing software I use is Shotcut. My camera is a Logitech StreamCam. It's an external camera. I do plug it into my laptop.
Nice.
And the microphone, receiver, and transmitter set that I use is the Rode transmitter receiver. And I think it was actually you that recommended this, or maybe you recommended it to somebody else and then they recommended it to me. I do plug in a lav mic to the transmitter.
Mm-hmm.
I find that the Rode, even though it's quite small, if I'm doing intense cardio, it just bounces around too much if I clip it onto my collar.
Yeah.
So I actually clip the transmitter onto my waistband, and then I plug a lav mic into that.
Nice.
And that seems to be working. So
awesome.
We're sticking with it.
I will say that I actually have two of those. I actually have the Logitech Stream Cam, which I think is a very solid camera. It's a great one to recommend for individuals that are looking to improve. Laptops often don't have great cameras on them. So getting an external camera, this is one to check out. The Rode Wireless Go is one that I recommend all the time, just for the company. Rode, very well known. It's a very respectable lavalier microphone, and exactly what you said right there with getting a lav to attach to it. If anybody watches any of the tutorials I make, oftentimes I will hide it in my shirt, that I will basically just I'll unbutton one of the shirts on the polo shirt that I'm wearing, and I'll hide it in there. But it's a very, very good microphone. It's a solid microphone that you can utilize. So thank you for sharing that information there. As we get to the podcast closing tips, great opportunity to hear from the guest based off their experiences and looking forward to. So Kristi, what are two closing thoughts on the future of the fitness industry that you would like to share?
Well, I believe that the virtual side of fitness is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. But I see it as more of an extension of the in-person experience rather than a complete replacement of the in-person brick and mortar experience for the vast majority of Americans. Of course, we just got finished talking about subpopulations like my mother, for example, who can't handle in-person or gym situations, or individuals who are just wary of gyms due to, personal, mental, or emotional feelings. But for the fitness professional who's trying to navigate the future, I would say, don't quit your in-person teaching job quite yet. I think because the virtual space is quite competitive, whether it's from juggernauts like Peloton and Apple Fitness, or even just the plethora of free workouts available on YouTube. There's competition in this space too. So our challenge as fitness reps as fitness pros going forward is to figure out how to straddle both spaces. How to have a presence both in the brick and mortar world, in the in-person face-to-face world, but also online. And I mean, the tech will figure it out. I believe in us. We are smart. We are capable. And then once we figure out the tech, it's then going to be a time management issue of where, in which side of the fitness universe, the in-person brick and mortar or the online virtual, how to bring those together in a time management way and move forward.
Nice. The piece I just want to briefly expand on there is with the competition. I think that plays into what I was saying earlier with the improvement of your workouts, whether it's editing, whether it's the software, the hardware that you're getting. Those pieces go into improving your workout, your online workout. There's tremendous competition out there, and I think it's going to get harder. I've said that, and it's changed over the last month and a half. I used to believe, and this was maybe a year ago, that anybody, get into it, please grow it, and please keep doing it. But I really feel like the competition is getting stiffer. It's getting a lot harder. And so crossing all those T's, investing in items that will help improve, will only help you in the long run. So it's interesting to look at how this mold of the fitness industry is evolving, how it's growing. And it's more than just being a personal trainer, being a group exercise instructor in person. We have online. We have so many different things out there. So really fascinating to hear. Kristi, before we sign off here, can you share your information about your social media links and your website?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So the best place to find out information about not only where I teach, both online and in person, is on my Instagram. I have two different Instagram accounts. There's at Fit Chris Taylor, and that's FITKRISTAYLOR. And that's where I post more information about my in-person classes. For my online and on-demand classes, my Instagram account is at Feel the Beat Fitness. And that's, again, Feel the Beat Fitness. So that's the best place to find information, and including links to my websites and my fitness channel.
Love it. I love it. Kristi, thank you for being my guest on this episode, sharing a lot of useful tips, insight into online training, into really a space where people can grow, people can continue to grow, and they can be competitive. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.